Hello, friends. Greg Kokel here. The show is Stand to Reason, and I'm kind of pumped right now. We just had about 3 hours with some wonderful people from Norway who we had a team from Norway sponsored by the same folk. They came out last year, and I don't know, they're spending a couple weeks here in the States, and they came by. Christians who are committed to making a difference in their own country. We actually had some confusion where I was, I don't know why this happened. Many years ago when I was working at Hope Chapel, we were asking, where did Norwegians come from? And nobody could think of the word Norway. So somebody just said, I think it's Norwegia. So that was the, Norwegia. That became the joke. But we had some real Norwegians here and had a fabulous time with them. And actually, they're still hanging out, listening to the show a little bit here. I would be remiss without saying something about the Super Bowl, since Sunday was Super Bowl Sunday. And in case you're interested, which maybe you would, I was rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, I didn't get my the bearded piece to give me thumbs down. Big San Francisco fan. I look at it. I usually don't have a horse in the race, okay? I just come and pick a team. Turned out my daughter was for San Francisco. I usually try to side with her. But I like Patrick Mahomes. This is his third Super Bowl ring. He's only, 28 years old, and he's got a long history ahead of him, and maybe he's going to beat Brady. But he's just kind of fun to watch. But I will say this, and Brock Purdy did a great job. I think the only time, maybe I'm not correct, I think there was a part of the game where the Chiefs were ahead 3 points or something. I don't know, but it was tight. And the first three quarters were boring, I think, because nothing was happening. Why? Because the defense was so great on both sides. And I think Purdy did a great job. He stayed in the pocket because he had a fabulous offensive line that gave him great protection. He never seemed in trouble. And Mahomes was scrambling all over the place. He couldn't stay in the pocket, and he wasn't finding receivers because the secondary was doing such a great job, the defensive secondary. And so in a way, when the defense is doing such a great job, it leaves you kind of wondering, well, when's this game going to start? Oh, and it started the fourth quarter. And then it got really interesting. And then it was come from behind in overtime to make, as it turned out, to go for the Chiefs to go 75 yards without making a big mistake. If they didn't make a first down and keep moving down, if they fumbled the ball, if the ball was intercepted, it was over with because the 49ers, of course, made that field goal 3 points up. And then with, 4 seconds left on the clock, or 6 seconds or 8 seconds, something negligible like that, Patrick Mahomes pitched one into the end zone, and the game was over. And that was a fun ending, for me at least. A real heartbreak for 49ers fans. Anyway, so there you go. That's my armchair quarterbacking stint here. I was watching. We don't have network TV, so the only way we can watch something is if I purchase a subscription to some kind of sports thing. And the one I purchased for football, just because my daughter likes it and I thought we'd watch some football together, is actually a Canadian provider. So here I'm watching the Super Bowl, waiting to see these great Super Bowl commercials, and characteristically it's the best commercials of the year. And I'm watching commercials for Tim Horton or McDonald's in Canada, or CTA, Canadian TV, whatever. Boring commercials. But what it meant is I didn't get a chance to see the He Gets Us commercials, which I'm very interested in. I'm quite concerned about that campaign, and we've talked about this before. What is the message that's being communicated? And in my view, it's not a good message. Do you know those commercials cost $7 million for 60 seconds? And when you do a very nicely produced, cleverly done He Gets Us commercial, it costs you $7 million for just that 1 minute, you better make sure that your millions are being well spent. And not only am I convinced they were not well spent, but I think that they actually did damage. Now, Natasha Crain has written on this in the past, and we had her on board a year ago when this campaign first started. She is not available today, so we're going to have to talk with her next week, and she'll give us the rundown then. So we will revisit that issue, all right? The issue of the He Gets Us campaign, which I'm actually borderline stunned at the particular Christians that have come out either somewhat neutral to affirmative or completely affirmative about this campaign. And we'll talk about why that's the case. And I'm sure many of you who are part of the Stand to Reason community and have learned a few things about, in a sense, reading between the lines about what is actually going on and things like that, have seen many of the things that we see. And we'll talk about that next week with Natasha Crain. So we're going to be doing, Amy, we're doing an interview with Natasha off schedule, but it's going to be aired next week. Is that right? Will that be the Tuesday? Oh, the one that comes out Wednesday, or the one that comes? It'll be Wednesday. Okay, so that's when you'll have a shot at Natasha's comments. I've already read her piece about this, and it might be on the internet. Natasha Crain, Crain. And just put He Gets Us. She's written 2 pieces about it. This was a follow-up to last year. They're both excellent and very even-handed, fair-minded. And she did her research, and her thinking is great. And I think she does a great job in clarifying the concerns that we all share here at Stand to Reason, and many other Christian apologists see as well, though not all. So that'll come next week, or you can read the piece in the meantime. All right. So we have been getting some questions quite frequently, apparently, about marriage licenses or marriage certificates per se. And it's not the concern at this point that these are licenses that are being given out for same-sex unions, thus verifying and justifying as equal to heterosexual unions, these same-sex unions that are now called marriages. They're not, but they're called that. By the way, they can only be called marriages if the word marriage has no meaning. And after Obergefell and the Supreme Court decision, someone made the observation, that all marriage are names on a piece of paper. That's it. It does not represent anything meaningful anymore, certainly not to culture. Because what matters to culture is a foundational family structure that marriages characteristically begin, and provides the basis for every culture, not just Christian culture. What we're talking about here are not Christian rules about marriage, biblical standards about marriage, but the way reality is structured. You don't need to be a Christian or a Bible reader to know the way the world is. And this is why forever, from the beginning of civilization, marriage has been a word used to describe a particular kind of relationship. And it wasn't that the word or the culture who used the word created the relationship. The relationship already existed as a feature of human civilization. And because it's such an important part of human civilization, cultures have regulated it and protected it and privileged it, okay? But the start of a real marriage begins with, but it entails characteristically, a public celebration and a public affirmation of intention. And the question that we've been getting quite a bit, apparently, is what's the big deal with a marriage license? Can't we just be married before God by saying private vows to each other? And this has come up before. In fact, this was very popular in the 60s to dismiss the marriage relationship, the formal marital relationship, as merely a piece of paper. We don't need the piece of paper. We're in love with each other. We'll stay with each other. And given the facts of divorce rates, if we want to leave each other, we can leave each other. So there is no difference in many people's minds to just making some kind of vow. I don't know what that vow entails, even if it's before God, privately, as opposed to publicly making the vow. All right? And so I want to offer my thoughts about this. And in a certain sense, I guess I could agree that the piece of paper doesn't make a marriage. What the piece of, just like in a certain sense, I guess you could say, a contract isn't principally words written on the paper. What a contract is an agreement, a formal agreement between two people about some, usually a business deal, that is formalized and secured by a piece of paper, which makes it, I'm trying to think of the right word, because I don't want to suggest that it creates the contract or the obligation or the agreement, but what it does is secures it. It secures it. And in the same way, when a couple gets married and does two things, one, they formalize that with the government by getting a marriage certificate, which then places them in a particular place in the cultural setting where the government now offers formal protections and privileges to that relationship for the purpose of securing its stability, since it is the central relationship to civilization. Families are the building blocks of civilizations, and marriages create families. That's the way they start. Now, of course, that isn't always the way it works. But you and I know that when it doesn't work that way, it's a distortion of what is good. And I don't even have to moralize from the Bible here. That when that institution that functions in societies, every society, whether they have a Bible or not, essentially from the beginning of time, as long as we have records of people doing stuff, this is one of the things they did. And it wasn't just cohabiting. It wasn't just like, hey, you're sexy, I like you, and let's make a baby or whatever. It was more formal. And there are all kinds of actual ornate kind of rituals that different cultures have regarding this. What are they doing? They are making this a big thing. Why? Because it is a big thing. Again, leaving aside the theological elements just for a moment, the case can be made even without those, that a marriage relationship is something that our culture needs, stable marriages for human flourishing. Humans have long gestation periods, 9 months. That's a long time to carry a child. And then after the child's born, that's just, the trouble just begins, right? There is a long period of time following that where that offspring is dependent upon the family for survival, not just the mother. She plays a very unique and precious role in the process, but dad's in there too, doing the things that characteristically mothers don't have time to do because they're caring for these children. They're out hunting, gathering, protecting, all of those kinds of things to provide for the family. Now, I realize that's archetypical of kind of classical family, and we got different variations now, mom works, etc. But the point I'm making is a point about human flourishing, and human beings being the kind of beings they are require a certain kind of environment in order to grow up well and safely and to ultimately flourish. Okay? And that happens best when you have a stable family environment. I mean, you guys know, everybody's aware of friends now, gals who have live-in boyfriends, and that works great. They may even have kids. When I say that works great, I'm being a little facetious here. I'm not championing it. Oh, that looks great. Oh, we might have a kid or two until the guy leaves. And when he's tired of getting what he wanted for very little responsibility, he moves on to someone else. And mom is there having to take care of the children, single moms. Okay, well, moms rise to the occasion. My wife was a single mom before we got married. But no, who would argue that's ideal? Who would argue that's best? Who would argue that's good? No, what's good and best, obviously, is the nuclear family. And incidentally, that's been obvious for millennia. It doesn't matter where you live. And it's only been recently that common sense on this issue is no longer common because people have been bullied into ignoring common sense and ignoring what's obvious. I mean, this is not a hard issue. So what is the point now? You're a Christian. You want to say, I want to get married before God. What does that look like? Marriage before God is not a marriage unless it's a marriage before human beings too. Now, you're going to say, where in the Bible does it say that? It doesn't say that. But very early in the biblical record, it became very clear that these relationships were secured not by a private commitment before God, but by a public commitment in which someone, in a certain sense, pays a price. They are standing before the public and they are saying, here are the vows I'm making in front of you so that you can hold me accountable to these vows, and I'm also standing before God. No, it's not about a piece of paper. It's about it's about a vow before God that is made with the gravity that is appropriate to the institution. Now, can atheists get married? Sure. They don't vow before God. I understand that. But that's because they don't understand. It doesn't mean it's not a marriage. Of course it's a marriage. In that circumstance, if it's a male and a female, there'll be a marriage. But they may not acknowledge that it's before God. All I'm saying is God is the one who made this institution, who constructed reality in this fashion. And it's been operating like that for millennium until just recently. In fact, one of the quips, which was not meant to be funny, it was meant to be serious, from the Supreme Court justices themselves, one of the justices, was that maybe this was during Obergefell in 2015, when that case was being argued. Maybe it was 2014 when it was argued. It came out in June of 2015. What the judge said is, you know what, maybe we ought to move a little bit slower because the concept of same-sex marriage is not as old as the cell phone. Now, remember, this is like 7 years ago. So cell phones were not as old as they are now. But they're recent in human history. And same-sex marriage, the concept is even more recent. It's foreign to civilization because it's not a marriage in the sense that people have understood it to be and protected it and privileged it and regulated it, okay? Now, by the way, Jesus acknowledged that there's a difference between living together and marriage, and we read about it in John chapter 4. Because there he's talking to the woman at the well, who seems to be pretty obviously a woman of compromised character. Let's just put it that way. And when Jesus says, go get your husband, she says, I don't have a husband. And Jesus said, that's right, you've had 5. And the one you're living with now is not your husband. Notice how Jesus himself made this distinction. A cohabiting relationship is not a marriage. Oh, there's a common law marriage category in American jurisprudence, but that's just for the sake of the law, to provide protection, actually, to the wife especially, who might be taken advantage of by a man who lives with her for a long time and then leaves maybe with children, etc. So there are legal, even in a common law marriage, notice that the point of the common law marriage is to establish a de facto marriage with its corporate responsibilities, even when there's no piece of paper. Just goes to show how important that thing is from a cultural perspective. But from a Christian perspective, it's even more, because we understand that God ordained this. A man shall leave his father and a mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. What God has joined together, these are Jesus' words, let no man separate, Matthew 19. So he adds that last sentence to the Genesis account in chapter 2 of Genesis about when the first marriage happened and the nature of that thing, and that it is a God thing that's just been ordained. And I want to clarify something here, because it's sometimes easy to get this concept mixed up or to misunderstand the point I'm making. I'm not just saying that these are the rules that God established and we got to play by God's rules. Now, that's certainly the case in many things. And if God says it, then he's in charge, right? But it's just not a matter of making arbitrary rules about something. He built the world in a certain way. If you have a diesel vehicle, you can't put regular gas in it. In fact, I think you can't even put the nozzle in the car. It's blocked because the nozzle for diesel is different. People don't want you mixing the gas and the diesel up. Why? Because the diesel vehicle was not made to run on gasoline. It was made to run on diesel. Okay? It's the structure of that machine. And in a very real sense, God structured reality in a very particular way, that it worked in a certain way. And when it worked the way he intended, he called that good. In fact, when it comes to marriage, he called that very good. And so when we violate the order that God has established, we're not just breaking the rules as if they were arbitrary. We are putting gas in a diesel engine. That's what we're doing. We're working cross purposes to reality. And so especially Christians who understand that ought to follow the pattern that not just Christian or Jewish believer people did under their period of time before God, but all people did, regardless of which God they happened to worship. They recognized the way reality was structured, the importance of a particular kind of union, long-term monogamous heterosexual union. Now, sometimes they weren't monogamous. There's polygamy. That caused all kinds of problems, though, and still does. But in general, a long-term monogamous heterosexual union, as a rule, produce the next generation by nature, characteristically. And since it produced the next generation, and there's a long gestation period, mom's pregnant for 9 months, and then kids are around for about 20 years. It used to be only about 15, 14, 13. Now it's twice that or 3 times that, depending on the household. Can't get rid of them. That's another issue. Not that we want to get rid of kids in that sense, but we want them to grow up to be adults. Oh, people grow up so fast these days. Kids grow up so fast. No, they don't. They don't grow up at all. What they get is adult privileges without having to take on adult responsibilities, and this corrupts them. So there's a reason for marriage the way it is. It's the way the reality is structured, the way God made things, and human beings are such that these kind of stable relationships promote human flourishing. And so also then, therefore, we celebrate and protect and regulate as a community. And as Christians, we have a deeper understanding about why the world's that way, and we bring honor to God when we stand before people, and indeed before the state, and before God's minister, and we make a pledge before God to others to be married to have and to hold, to love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, until death do us part. That's the pledge. I mean, it's not taken seriously by a lot of people nowadays, but it ought to be. And incidentally, when people are having a struggle in marriage and they're looking, okay, what to do, of course, they're going to be told, keep your vows. And what they think that only means is, got to stay married because we've vowed until death do us part. Well, you certainly did vow that, and you should keep that vow, but that wasn't the only thing in the vow. To have and to hold, to love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. Those are all part of it. It helps us to reflect on how we are to comport ourselves when things get difficult. C.S. Lewis made the point. Marriage vows are not required when everything is going great. And as one marriage vow put it in the 60s, as long as you both shall dig it. It's when you don't dig it that you need the security of a vow. And it's only going to be secure, maybe that's too strong a language, it's most likely to be secure because the vow that you made is in public before God and man, and one of those human witnesses is going to be the state that issues a piece of paper. It's not just a piece of paper. It's a formal vow, a serious vow, a weighty vow that is made, a promise. And I've said before, how do you secure the future? You secure the future through a promise. You secure the past through forgiveness. You secure the future through a promise. And that's the purpose here. You want the promise to stick? You want to have the best chances for it to stick? You make it before people, before God and before others. Okay, let's take a break. Greg Kokel here at Stand to Reason. More in a moment. You know, I just had another couple of quick thoughts here about this piece of paper issue. Notice that Jacob had to wait 7 years for Rachel. In other words, this was his, I don't know, you can call it a dowry, but it's what he had to sacrifice. That's his vow, so to speak, his public display of faithfulness and fortitude regarding this woman would give Laban a tremendous confidence that his daughter was going to be in good hands. The other one was, it's just curious, isn't it, that when heterosexual couples were dismissing formal marriage as a mere piece of paper, that gays were clamoring for that piece of paper. They were the ones, ironically, who understood the significance of the piece of paper, as it were. It's in culture. It's a legitimization. It's a verification. It's a way, in their case, of publicly declaring that heterosexual unions and same-sex unions are no different. But they were willing to get that. They desperately wanted that piece of paper where many heterosexual couples were issuing it. So just a thought there. All right, let's go to the phones. And first, number one up is Andy in Hawthorne. Is that Hawthorne, California, Andy?
Yes, that's me.
Hey.
Hi. You've been talking a lot about marriage lately, especially after your response to Alistair Biggs. His advice about attending a transgender wedding. And so you last week had posted issued a response to some follow-up questions, and I had a follow-up question about some of one of your responses to the follow-up question.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, and you'll please forgive me if I'm misquoting you. I'm sure you'll let me know. You had said that a wedding between a transgender individual or two men, for example, is not a wedding.
Right.
At least not by the Christian definition, and is therefore not a union that a Christian should celebrate by attending the ceremony of it. Now, during your follow-up last week, if I caught it correctly, you were saying, though, that, while a Christian wedding, Christians who are seeking to get married have the scriptural command to not be unequally yoked, but non-believers or members of another faith, for instance, a Hindu and a Muslim, do not have that same scriptural command to avoid being unequally yoked.
Correct.
So for that reason, a Christian would not have reason to object to a wedding, for example, between a Hindu and a Muslim.
Not on moral grounds, correct.
Not on moral grounds, sure. But, okay, so here's my question. Unions between two non-believers also would not qualify as a marriage by the Christian definition, correct? Because Christianity has, let's say now we're not talking about a Hindu and a Muslim, let's say we're talking about atheists. Christianity has always recognized a marriage as being, at least in part, a divine union. During your monologue,
I mentioned that. That
correct.
Jesus, made the comment. But what you just offered, the Christian view, even though I mentioned that doesn't mean that's the Christian view. And this is the second time you use that by Christian definition.
Okay.
I define my understanding of marriage comes from the created order that Jesus referred to from the beginning. When in Matthew 19, he's talking about marriage and, I should say, divorce and remarriage. And he refers back to the created order, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. So when a man leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife, the two become one flesh. That is a marriage, okay? It is also the case that that institution is one that God himself has ordained. So we could say that given that ordination by God, this is something that God has joined together. And so, therefore, God does not intend people to get divorced because there's a destructive element to divorce, given the structure of reality. It's the language I've been using, all right? So, though Christians have an understanding of the divine element in there, it's going to be, that divine element is an element of marriage per se, which Jesus describes as the man and wife leaving and joining and becoming one flesh. And he just adds this is something God has joined together, so therefore it's meant to be permanent. Let no man separate, meant to be permanent. That is a further theological understanding that Christians have. But it is also, since this is the understanding of what marriage is, even when atheists do it, the same thing is going on, even if they don't acknowledge it. It's still a man leaving and cleaving and becoming one flesh with his wife. So it still is, even they don't believe in God, it still is a bona fide marriage. So it's not a Christian definition, it's Jesus' definition, which Christians use because he's describing the way God made the world, even for non-believers.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that makes sense. So what I was looking for was a specific distinction in your mind between these two classes of non-Christian wedding ceremonies. One, for example, being a gay or transgender wedding, and the other being between just two heterosexual non-believers. And your answer, it sounds like, would be that one, while not recognizing the divine source or the divine provenance of this wedding ceremony, is still following the general model as laid out or as intended by God.
That's right. And that's why people, like in cavemen or whatever, you can go back as far as you want, they still did this kind of thing. It's as cultures developed, this became a pattern because of the importance of that, this formalizing of this relationship. But it was always male-female. It's always male-female because that's the nature of the thing, the way God made it. The theological element may not be consciously in people's mind or might even be rejected, but it doesn't make it not a marriage. The marriage is between the man and the woman, and therefore when it's between a man and a man or a woman and a woman, it's not a marriage at all. It's something else. And when it's posturing as a marriage, it's a corruption of what God purposed. And that's why celebrating the corruption is not appropriate for a Christian.
Okay. And I totally understand that.
Good.
While you were saying that, I had a follow-up question.
Okay.
It just popped into my mind. Hopefully you'll allow me. So we're assuming then that attending a wedding ceremony is a celebration of that marriage, and that is a perfectly reasonable assumption. I'm just curious, how would you respond to somebody saying, it's no more a celebration of the marriage than, say, shopping at Target or some other store that supports an agenda that you as a believer do not?
I don't even know. I would look at the person quizzically, and I'd be thinking in my mind, you're an idiot. But I wouldn't say that, because that would be unkind. What possible parallel could there be between these two, except for that in both cases you're walking through a door into another place? A marriage, a wedding is a place where two people are being joined together, and you are there to rejoice with them because of the event. And you give gifts, you applaud, you sometimes shed a tear or two because you're deeply moved at the significance of the event. This is the beginning of a new family, and pretty soon there'll be little munchkins running around and cookie crunchers, and oh, won't it be wonderful? It's all part of the package. Nobody thinks anything like that when they walk into Target. They're buying a product. And it doesn't matter what the people pushing the buttons on the machine or counting the money upstairs or running the show believe about anything. You're not participating in their beliefs when you buy their commodities there over at Target. Now, if you wanted to say, I don't like what Target is doing, and I'm going to tell you I don't like it by not spending money here, fine.
Yeah.
That's your prerogative. But I don't think a person who does spend money there is participating in their corrupted, understanding about sexuality, which I think that's exactly what that is. It's like apples and oranges. Apples and oranges are both fruits. That's even too close of a comparison. These are universes apart.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand that. The parallel that was in my mind as I was posing this was that, I'm sure somebody has and will argue that by attending a ceremony, you are showing your love for that person in your life, because, we are called to love on and minister to unbelievers, no matter their variety of sin, as it were.
Yeah.
So this is going to be, simply another way to show our love for that person without necessarily, celebrating the marriage.
Yeah. I think that's specious. And the thing is, you cannot. I'm trying to think of an illustration that's not gross. But there are some things you can participate in, and it is a mere expression of love. There are other things that you show love by participating in something that itself is a celebration of that thing you're participating in. And the thing you're participating is in a same-sex. You're celebrating is a same-sex wedding. Alan Schleman on our team, we talk about this a lot, try to work out the finer points, and we've recently gone over some of these issues, these details. He's actually gone to 2 same-sex weddings for the reasons that people have given is justifiable. First, both times he regretted it. Now he won't do it at all. And it did not seem to have the slightest impact on improving the relationship, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times you don't even remember who went to your wedding. You know who's standing there with you, but there are lots of people in and out, whatever. It's a blur. But not only that, He said, and there we were sitting, and people are in a gay wedding, a homosexual wedding, 2 guys, and people are ding, 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 right, their glasses. What's that for? That's everybody cheering on the bride and I should say in this case, the groom and the groom to kiss. And then they kiss. Oh. And he's got to sit through, and this is what this event involves. It's all a celebration. All the dances and all of this, the receiving line, congratulations, everything. How could you attend this thing and say you're not participating in the celebration? You're just showing love. That's why I say it's specious.
Yeah.
A person who says that is fooling themselves. I think that they are showing love. But they are not, but it's, in other words, their gesture is motivated by showing love, by a desire to show love. But one could even question whether it is, in fact, a demonstration of genuine love at all. Because Paul says love does not, what's the word? Rejoice in unrighteousness. So is a same-sex wedding reflect unrighteousness? Yes. When you go to a same-sex wedding, what's going on there? People are rejoicing. Well, if people are rejoicing, and that's the nature of the thing that you're going to, then you are not actually loving the person there. Or persons. So there you have it.
Fair enough. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm still
all right. No, I'm glad to
work out my own consistent ethic in this regard.
Yes. Okay. And I'm glad to be a part of that. Thanks for your call, Andy.
No problem. Thanks, Greg.
Okay. Bye-bye now. Hey, let's go to a quick break here, and then we'll come back again with more of your calls on Stand to Reason. All righty. And let's see, who do we go to this time? We've got Coconut Creek, Florida, and Lewis. Coconut Creek, Florida. That sounds exotic, Lewis.
Yeah, how's it going, Greg?
It's going okay. Where is Coconut Creek?
Coconut Creek is more South Florida area. I guess another city that's more common would be Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay. Southeast. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Mm-hmm. Okay, Lewis, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I have 2 questions. Hopefully you could take the second one. But the first question, I'm recently doing a study with Reasonable Faith. I'm reading the book with William Lane Craig, and I have a study guide that I'm running through and possibly opening up a Reasonable Faith chapter. So one of the questions came across to me, and I just wondered how I can answer this in a one-to-one, person. And it says, how would you respond to someone who says, I don't believe in God, but my life is meaningful? And of course, I can answer that with book-style answer, but I wanted to see what's a good approach to a person.
Okay, so I would ask questions here, all right? I don't think any thoughtful Christian apologist who understands the problem here would ever say that a non-Christian cannot lead a meaningful life, okay? But the problem is in the word meaningful. So I'd want to ask them a question. What do you mean it's meaningful? Well, I do things that I like to do. The things that I do bring me satisfaction. They give me fulfillment. I think I'm doing good in the world, okay? And I could say, all right, I understand you, but that's the same thing an SS officer would say. An SS being basically a stormtrooper of the Nazis who were especially brutal in advancing the Aryan race and in executing Jews. Their lives were meaningful to them. They were doing something that was good. And in fact, even after the war was over, quite a number of these people that were on trial at the Nuremberg trials would not even acknowledge that what they did was wrong. They thought it was noble. They still, stuck to their guns, as it were, even though they lost the war. They were convinced that what they were doing was noble. Okay, now the question that I'm going to ask is, to the person who says, when he says, my life is meaningful. I ask what, and they're going to give their characterization. Chances are pretty good that that same characterization is going to fit a whole bunch of other people that it seems to moral common sense led morally grotesque lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is going to be, what's the difference? And the correct answer for the atheist is there is no difference. It's just they like something that I didn't like. But we both did what was meaningful to us, and that's all you can say. And in fact, that's all they can say, if they are being consistent with their view. So I'm going to first ask a question about their definition of meaningful, and then I'm going to ask a question. Then I'm going to think, given how they characterize it, I'm going to think of severe counterexamples where their same definition would apply to people who lived morally grotesque lives. And then I'm going to ask them about that. So on your view, then, this would be justifiable what they did because they were living meaningful lives too. Different meaning than you had. I get that. Mm-hmm. But just as meaningful to them in the ways that your life is meaningful to you. How do you think about that? That's what I would ask.
Right. And like you mentioned, that's something you can actually bring up to them. Well, if you hold your view consistent as an atheist, then your meaning would still be, I guess, valid to you, even though Adolf Hitler, killed all these people.
It would be, yes, it would be valid to them, no question. But the point I'm making, it's no different. You just happen to choose what appear to be noble-sounding goals for your meaningful life. But on your view, there's no difference between Hitler and Mother Teresa.
Right.
If they were both making the best of their own lives according to their own views. You can't say Mother Teresa's views were better, mm-hmm. Hitler's were worse. All you could say is they're different because there's no standard by which you can measure them that doesn't entail a moral judgment that an atheist has no appropriate right to. He can't just smuggle this, he can't just borrow this morality from a Christian worldview when it's not part of his worldview. His worldview is do your own thing, and that's not morality. That's just a rational outworking of a view that holds there is no ultimate meaning in the world. No ultimate meaning. There is only meaning that you can give it. But if you give it your meaning, then the next guy is just as free to give it his meaning, whatever that happens to be. And that could be the SS Stormtrooper compared to Mother Teresa and the nuns, the Mothers of Mercy or whatever the group was that she was a part of. And this is the stickler. Your view, I'm speaking now to the atheist, your view, atheist, allows for all of this stuff. All of this, there is no distinction. Your meaningfulness is simply tied to yourself, your self-interest and your self-desires. For Christians, or noble theists, their interests are tied to an other, one greater than them. And so they seek to do the greatest good, which means not to do what they want selfishly, but rather to do the good, the objective good, the truly noble thing, and not just pursue whatever. So I want to lay that out for them. Okay, so they can see the difference and just, this is gardening. It may not convince them.
Mm-hmm.
I know Francis Schaeffer had a discussion like this with someone once. It's in one of his books. And he was having a discussion, and the person was making a claim along this line. And Schaeffer took a pot of boiling water, and he held it above the guy's head. And the guy said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, on your view, there's no moral difference for me pouring it on your head or not pouring it on your head." Something to that effect.
Right.
And he was trying to, this is called taking the roof off, and he was trying to let the person see the true consequences of the view that he had if he followed it out to its natural conclusion. And it was a good move, but daring.
I love that, and I think that's like the point, I guess, that would have been the next step. How do I show that in a way like Schaeffer was going to pour the boiling water over him, and he realized, well, that seems more of irrational, selfish reasons and not doing unto others what you should do. So,
well, if it's meaningful to Francis Schaeffer to do it, then why shouldn't he? That's how he's getting his meaning, from hurting other people. That's meaningful to him. And you're playing their rules against them, and hopefully it's going to show them how ridiculous their view is, okay? But you had another question. We just got about 2.5 minutes, so I wanted to get to that quickly.
Okay, yeah. So, real quick, I came to saving faith through, apologetics a few years ago. And watching, you, Sean McDowell, William Lane Craig. And recently at our church, we just started a satellite church about a year ago. I worked there as an admin and director. I approached one of our pastors about getting involved with apologetics, but he mentioned most don't come through apologetics. So I know that really can't be true only because I know I was one who came through it by apologetics. So how would I be able to humbly approach my pastor and to be able to maybe get engaged with the church through apologetics?
Okay, a couple of things here. Most don't come through apologetics. That's probably true. But if people don't use apologetics, then most aren't going to come through apologetics, It's like a guy who fishes with one lure all the time. And then he says, if he's a fisherman, right? And he's fishing, and he said, man, every bass that I've caught in the last 10 years has been on this lure. Well, that's because it's the only lure you ever use, And if he says most people don't come through apologetics, but people aren't exposed to apologetics, then that's going to be true by default. It may be that if more people used apologetics, then more people would come to Christ through apologetics, because Jesus and the apostles used them frequently. And I can give you lots of examples of that. I'm just short on time. I got half a minute to go. Okay. Here's the other thing. Maybe a lot of people don't get one through apologetics, but a whole lot of Christians get lost because of a lack of apologetics. They get torn out of the body of Christ because they face challenges that they don't know how to deal with, and they have questions that people pose to them they don't know how to answer. Then these become their own questions. They deconstruct, and then they deconvert, all for the lack of apologetics. Okay, Lewis, thank you for the chat. Coconut Creek, Florida. It's hot down there. Probably not so much right now. But nice chatting with you. Thank you for the call. And that's it for this show, friends. Greg Kokel here for Stand to Reason. Give them heaven, all right? Bye-bye now.